Hey team, this is Thomas in Tyler, and today we are at White Pocket, which is part of the Bureau of Land Management near the South Coyote Buttes permit system, and it's just south of the Arizona Utah border. And I've got with me Robert Lawrence, who's my new geologist friend, who's brought us into this feature. And I thought he'd give, since he's a former geologist, Texas A&M trained, I thought he'd give us a little bit of commentary on what these features are, how it was formed, a little bit of a commentary about the Colorado Plateau in general.
Cool.
Take it away.
Awesome, thanks Thomas. Yeah, so here we are at White Pocket in Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. And this formation we're on is called Navajo Sandstone. And if we get a look out here, we can really get a look into what's happening here locally. With White Pocket. One of the critical things to understand about formations like this is that what's happening on the surface doesn't necessarily indicate what's going on below the surface. So you want to get a 3D look into things. And so that's what we have over here with these alcoves that are cut out by wind erosion. We have this kind of double stacked teepees, and then of course we see these striations that are famous all across Red Rock country and on the Colorado Plateau, anywhere you have sandstone formations. Those striations are a preservation actually of ancient sand dunes, a preservation of the structure of ancient sand dunes. If you were to take a modern day sand dune and cut it in half, you would see that the sand and the sediment is trending in the same direction as these striations are, and they're structured the exact same.
So a modern day sand dune would look like would have the same striations and the same structure as what you see here.
Correct. So a sand dune builds up, builds up, builds up, will even form a cornice.
Yes.
Eventually that slopes off, and so that slope side is the striation you're seeing in the rock.
Okay, I don't think I ever knew that.
So what we're seeing in that, and what we can match that to with ongoing and modern geology, is that we can see wind direction and the way that those dunes were being carried by wind.
Okay.
And this formation 190 to 220 million years ago, which is when all this sand was originally deposited. During those days, there was a lot of continental drift occurring. All the continents were moving apart from one another.
Okay.
And that was from our last known supercontinent called Pangaea, which you may have heard of. And the North American plate moved north. It also rotated. So during that time, Utah was actually closer to present-day Florida, then moved and rotated into its current north-south orientation, where it is now. And in all that movement, several shallow inland sea events occurred. Water came in and it saturated all that loose sand. And the sand dune deserts...
It became underwater then?
Correct.
Okay.
Shallow inland seas.
Gotcha.
So this whole area was similar to present-day Namibian desert, with how many sand dunes there were, how big they were, how it became coastal region.
Okay.
And then over time, with uplift and continuing continental drift, water would recede,
okay,
and then continued deposition would occur. But that's what kicked off what's called the diagenetic or diagenesis of sandstone. That's the transformation and lithification of sandstone from loose sand into hard rock.
Gotcha.
So it undergoes the initial phase, which is compression,
yep,
dunes piling on top of one another, then compaction, added weight from water, and then deposition on top of the formation, so it becomes subsurface. Dissolution, so the calcite minerals, quartzite minerals, all the silicates will dissolve, and then they recrystallize due to heat and pressure. And then the final phase is cementation. So that's the forming of the matrix and the binding and lithifying of the rock itself.
Okay.
Turning into hard rock. It undergoes a mudstone phase. And when it's subsurface, it's more susceptible to localized dramatic movements, which can cause folding to occur. So like in this view here, we see a lot of folds, and we don't see clean breaks. If you were to take this rock now and fold it in half like you would a t-shirt, it would snap in half.
That's right, that's right.
Yet we see a nice, pretty fold that goes all sorts of different directions, even looks like a fire-breathing swan almost, or a whale's tail. And that's because subsurface, when it was more of a mudstone and more pliable, it folded without breaking. The rock then totally lithified and it maintained that structure. So we're getting to see ancient sand dunes, and then later on we're seeing where it folded and became, or went through a process that a lot of people know as soft sediment deformation.
You've spoken before, Robert, about this uplifting. Did the uplift is what caused the folds necessarily, or was it different?
It could have been. This area has a lot of active faults. Utah has over 200 active faults.
Okay.
A lot of those are minor. You wouldn't notice anything on the surface.
Okay.
During any sort of movement, but subsurface, it could
it's
cause.
there. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, people use the moniker of the Colorado Plateau.
Mm-hmm.
Give us an idea of how big that region is and where it reaches in north and south and east and west.
Sure. So the Colorado Plateau extends into northern Arizona, or that could be where it starts. The southern portion of it along the Mogollon Rim, which is around Sedona, Arizona, and back kind of to the east into New Mexico.
That's the southern reaches, and it goes all the way up into
northeast New Mexico into western Colorado, and then pretty much all of southern Utah. Yeah. And basically everything south of I-70.
Okay.
And then it kind of trends back south towards St. George, where you get a triple junction of tectonic movements. You have Great Basin, Mojave Desert, and Colorado Plateau.
Yeah, so St. George, just to give reference, that's where those famous canyons, Zion National Park is located, right near there, that confluence. So
yeah,
a lot of great sandstone country there.
Absolutely. And Colorado means color red in Spanish, and it's red rock country, so that's where the name comes from. So everything we see is an exposure of formations that actually extend much further north. But we don't see exposure of it because they were not uplifted. Okay. So the Colorado Plateau uplift was a very unique uplift, something we don't really see anywhere else in the world.
In the world, this is it. That's why people from all over Europe and Asia, they all come here to see these formations.
Exactly.
That's one thing I tend to forget is how totally unique this red rock stand-up country is.
Yeah, and it brings geologists from all over the world to map, survey, study. Universities from all over the country.
So one thing I've learned about Robert, his passion right now is the Grand Canyon. I mean, if you were to ask him offline, what's your favorite thing to do? What's your favorite area? He just keeps coming back to the Grand Canyon, which is right, coincidentally, maybe not, in the middle of the Colorado Plateau. Speak a little bit, just a few minutes about your passion for the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, so Grand Canyon, it wasn't a place that I really ever had on my radar. And then I went to an area, a really remote area, with a friend, and it was my first time to visit. And
you were eaten up by it.
And he took me to this viewpoint that nobody really goes to, and I was like, "Wow, that's amazing." And
you being a geologist, you understand, or with that background, you understand what created it and how it got here.
Right. And so yeah, and then that you kind of have a different appreciation and understanding totally. But I had told him next that was my first time to see the Grand Canyon. And he was like, "You got to be kidding me." He was like, "Nobody comes here for their first time." And so the backpack we went on was incredible, and I just fell in love with it in the area completely after that. And so I'm just totally immersed by it, and the diversity, how much it changes from the Vishnu schist, which is 1.7 billion year old rock, up to the Kaibab Plateau, which is 270 million year old rock.
Is that and between there you have 17 different layers, is my understanding?
Yeah, 16, 17, depending who you ask.
Gotcha.
And there's actually more.
That's the top to the bottom?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Cool.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks for your time today. I really enjoyed talking to you. More to come. Team, tune in for more information later.